Good evening, councillors. Please remain standing whilst, in the absence of my chaplain, Reverend Dr. Christopher Dingwall-Jones says prayers. Before we start, I need to remind you of the usual housekeeping messages. There are no fire alarm tests planned for this evening, so if the alarm sounds, please leave the chamber by the nearest door, then follow the illuminated fire exit signs and assemble in the car park at the rear of the building. Would you also please ensure that your phones are on silent mode? Can I also just remind everybody that when they are speaking, for the purposes of the recordings, to press the button on the microphone, and please remember to put it on afterwards. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Apologies for absence have so far been received from councillors Balmain, B. Birch, C. Birch, R. Greenough and Councillor McKay. Are there any further apologies?
Councillor Patsy Ormrod.
Councillor Fay.
Councillor Christine Smith.
Councillor Patsy Ormrod.
Councillor Taylor.
Patsy Ormrod. Did you get that? Yeah. Did you say it? Yeah, but I did. He did acknowledge me. Oh no.
Okay, we have two sets of minutes to be confirmed this evening. Can I first please have a proposal that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 6th of September 2018 be approved as a correct record?
I'd like to propose those minutes, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
I'd like to second that proposition, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment? Would those members present at the 6th of September meeting who are in favour of confirming the minutes as a correct record please indicate? Now, can I please have a proposal that the minutes of the extraordinary council meeting held on the 24th of September 2018 be approved as a correct record?
I propose those, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal?
I'd like to second, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does anyone want to comment on the factual accuracy of the minutes or propose an amendment? Would those members present at the 24th of September meeting who are in favour of confirming the minutes as a correct record please indicate? Those against? Any abstentions? The minutes of the 24th of September meeting are confirmed. The next item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Do any members have any interest to declare on any items included on the agenda? Councillor Emma Anderton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On page 13, section 3, my main employer is the Department for Work and Pensions, although I don't actually directly have any involvement with the Universal Credit Benefit.
Thank you, Councillor Anderton. Oh, Councillor Ellison. Okay, thank you. The next item is announcements. I have 3 announcements this evening. Firstly, the Northern Festival of Remembrance takes place at the Marine Hall, Fleetwood, on Tuesday the 6th of November at 7 p.m. Tickets are £12 each and can be obtained from Andrea Mullen. Secondly, members have been invited to attend 2 Christmas concerts at the Marine organised by BBC Radio Lancashire. The first is an intimate Christmas concert to be held on Sunday the 16th of December at 1 p.m. and the second is the Lancashire Christmas concert with the band of the King's Division, to be held on Wednesday the 19th of December at 10:30 a.m. Tickets are free, but must be obtained in advance and are available on a first-come, first-served basis from Andrea Mullen. Finally, from me, an afternoon tea is to be held at the Mount Hotel, Fleetwood, on the 20th of October to raise funds for the Mayor's charities. Again, tickets can be obtained from Andrea Mullen. I understand that the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement portfolio holder wishes to make an announcement. Councillor Bowen, would you please do so?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It gives me great pleasure to give you this award. It's for the cemeteries. The department won the gold award for medium-sized cemeteries at Poulton New Cemetery. Not only did they get this award for the cemetery itself, but they get the award for the way they handle people, the way they are sympathetic, and lots of other things, how they can help people who are in really desperate need, some of them. And so it gives me great pleasure to give you this award.
Thank you very much. I understand that the Planning Economic Development portfolio holder also wishes to make an announcement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor-
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Vincent, would you like to do so?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm delighted to announce that Fleetwood Market was the North of England winner of the Best of Britain award. The market prides itself on maintaining the Victorian aspects of it while embracing modern needs by catering for visitors and what they want to see. It's absolutely brilliant to win the award, and in doing so we beat off stiff competition from markets in Bury, Skipton and York. So it's with great pleasure that I can present you with this glass thing.
No such questions or statements have been submitted. The next item is questions on notice from councillors. Again, no such questions have been submitted, so we will move on to executive reports. First, the report of the Leader of the Council. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report is before members. I have nothing to add and I will take questions.
Councillor Fail.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Power 2.1 of the Leaders' Report refers to the bid to retain 75% of business rates. The key concern raised at Council on the 24th of September was what happens if the bid fails. Have we had formal confirmation as to whether or not we would be able to revert to the Lancashire pool in that scenario? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I can confirm we have had formal confirmation that we will drop back to where we are now.
Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask Councillor Henderson his view on the duty of care to members, and I will use my own experience as an example. I was taken to hospital on the 25th of July, and after an assessment I was admitted to the intensive care unit as I had 2 seizures and a stroke. It seems I had not been well for some time. I developed double pneumonia and sepsis, and when I suffered respiratory failure, I was put in a drug-induced coma and I was on a ventilator for 16 days. 2 different ICU consultants advised my partner Susan that I wasn't expected to survive. Alcohol was possibly a factor in this issue, and I haven't had any alcohol since July. There was no official contact from Wyre either by the executive, i.e. the cabinet, or the leadership during my 7 weeks in hospital. Susan did contact the chief exec to ask whether he understood how serious the situation was, and he replied helpfully he had heard some rumours. In contrast, the vicar of St Chad's, Martin Keatley, knew of my condition and visited me while I was in ICU. He also said prayers for me at St Chad's, and I thank him. I would also like to thank individual councillors who did visit me and offered support for Susan as well, but I won't name them for fear of reprisals from the executive. My question is, will Councillor Henderson consider introducing a duty of care approach for members? The council may not be obliged legally to do so, but morally it needs to show that Wyre has a caring side. I wouldn't want other members to suffer the lack of compassion that was shown to me.
I think it's not...
Madam Mayor, the Chief Executive will answer. I feel that it's best if I don't.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your comments, Councillor Gibson. As you know, we have in place an appropriate policy, which is both staff welfare and members' welfare. Members will be aware in this room that I have taken action when comments of horrific nature have been posted on social media, and I have instigated the appropriate action. Councillor Gibson is correct. I was contacted by his partner by text because I'd only heard rumours. On that text, Councillor Gibson's partner made it very clear that I was not to discuss it with other elected members, and she made it very clear it was only certain close family members and certain friends who were to contact him or visit him. And I did offer that I would visit, but then I got no further response. But members can be assured, if there is any contact made with me, where help is required in any event, whether it's a serious health matter that Councillor Gibson suffered, or whether it's any other health matter, for example, mental health because of abuse on social media, then I will take that up and I will deal with it, and you can be assured about that.
Councillor Anderton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Henderson, I refer to page 12, paragraphs 3.1 to 3.3. I think everyone will agree that the Tommy silhouette in reception is a fitting tribute to those who lost their lives in World War I. The profit from sales of Tommies are supporting 6 military charities in the UK, and to date sales have topped £4 million, which will help our armed forces veteran community. Unfortunately, the Tommies are classed as merchandise, which means that £800,000 of the money raised so far has been paid in tax to HMRC, which makes HMRC the largest single beneficiary of the fundraising initiative, and surely this can't be right. Chancellor Philip Hammond could decide to refund the VAT on sales in much the same way that former Chancellor George Osborne did for the Tower of London ceramic poppies in 2014. I would urge you, Councillor Henderson, on behalf of Wyre Council, to write to the Chancellor asking him to return the VAT on Tommies so that the charities can maximise their work in supporting our armed forces veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Yes, your comments are noted, and I'm very glad to say that we actually were one of the first authorities to get the silhouettes. My thoughts at the time and those of the Chief Exec were get the Tommy, do our part, put it out there. What you just brought up then, I actually gave no thought to it whatsoever. I wouldn't even think of something like that, I've got to be perfectly honest. And I will speak to those that need to be spoken to. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just following on from the comments that the Chief Executive made about his compassionate side, and the awards that the staff really have just received that the portfolio holders have presented. I just want to know if the leader would agree with me that this authority is extremely well managed and well governed. Would you agree with that?
I certainly would, and also caring as well.
Councillor Ballard.
Yes, it's to you, the leader. Reference to item 2.1. At the last extraordinary meeting, we did discuss about Preston not being in, or we're not in. Are they in? Could you give us a confirmed answer to that, please?
Yes, certainly. When I presented that one, I believe it was the following day that Preston confirmed that they were in. So those that were expected to be in are in.
Are there any more questions? That concludes the consideration of the Leader's report. We will now move on to the report of the Resources Portfolio Holder. Councillor Alan Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to do so. If there are any questions or statements, I'd be happy to take them.
Are there any questions or comments for Councillor
Can I just say,
Vincent?
from my own part, I'm glad to see that Peter's back, and I'm glad to hear from him that his health is improving. I'm sure most of us are.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Vincent, 3.2 of your report discusses how the DWP have held a meeting with private landlords as migration of the housing benefit caseload to universal credit has the potential for financial implications for them. Has anyone here at Wyre taken into consideration the financial implications to the claimants themselves? There is nowhere in this report that shows any concern for the financial and psychological impact that transferring to universal credit will have on the residents here in Wyre. And for new claimants, that is meant to start here on the 5th of December. Have you any strategies in place at all for the increase in homelessness which may occur as a result of people being evicted because of the delay in benefits being paid? Are you going to consider the need to employ more staff to deal with the problems that this atrocious new system could bring? And I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to mention staffing levels. And also, may I add that in some cases, residents could find themselves over £2,000 a year worse off. This is typical of you as a Tory administration and of your party as a whole. Address the needs of the landlord first, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get around to the vulnerable in this borough that are going to suffer once again as a result of this Conservative government's disgusting policy to save money on the backs of those that can least afford it. For new claimants, and when I say claimants, this is not just unemployed, it refers to working families and the disabled. It will take at least 5 weeks to actually receive their first payment. That's 5 weeks in a lot of cases where the residents of this borough will have absolutely nothing to live off, nothing to pay their rent, nothing to pay their bills and nothing to feed their families. Yes, it may be possible that they can apply for a one-off advance payment, but only after they've jumped through hoops and demonstrated they have no friends, parents or parents of partners that can support them financially, they're near enough having to beg. I know you're going to try and argue that unemployment is down and that universal credit will lower the figure even more. That's if you trust the Tories' made-up figures, because research shows recent figures highlight unemployment across Britain is nearly 3.5 million, and that includes people in Wyre. Almost 1 million more than your official estimate and 2 million more than the number claiming job seekers allowance. And why? Because this government, unlike previous Conservative governments, falsifies its figures. It hides the fact that those who fail to qualify for JSA are diverted to other benefits. But they can always go to the food banks, as Tory MP and multimillionaire Jacob Rees-Mogg thinks food banks are rather uplifting. Do you agree with this sentiment, Councillor Vincent? What planet is this guy on? Food banks in areas where universal credit has already been rolled out are 4 times as busy than prior to the implementation. Or do you agree with Mr Mogg? Perhaps you concur. If you don't agree with Mr Mogg, perhaps you concur with Michael Gove's advice and start scavenging on rubbish tips for essentials. I'm sorry, but you lot are so out of touch, it's frightening. Frightening because as a result of your total lack of understanding as to how people are expected to survive for weeks on nothing.
Sorry, Councillor Duffy,
Sorry,
your time is up.
yes, I will wind up. What I want to know, Councillor Vincent, and be honest, do you truly condemn this appalling attack on, once again, the vulnerable within our borough, or do you support this appalling universal credit rollout? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor, without replaying the tape, I'm not sure I can go through everything that was said by Councillor Duffy. I'll go back.
Sorry, just one question. That was the end.
Well, you asked me a number of questions, I think, during the course of the diatribe. The first thing you asked me was whether we cared about the people of the borough as opposed to the landlords of the borough, and the answer to that is quite clearly yes, we do. We obviously had a meeting with landlords because the landlords are concerned about how it will affect them. Obviously it will affect people who are claiming the benefit, but landlords will also be affected, or they think they will. And it's easy to dismiss landlords as being some sort of villains in the piece, but if there are no landlords, then the tenants have got nowhere to live, have they? So you've got to look after the landlords as well. So obviously we need the landlords need to understand how the system will work. Do I agree with Rees-Mogg? Not often, but I'm sure some people do. It is what it is. Universal credit would appear to be delayed yet again. The rollout will be delayed yet again for some time down the years. It's a system which is at the moment clearly imperfect, but hopefully will be improved, and it is intended quite clearly, as you quite rightly suggested, to make sure that more people get into work and that people have work which they find more attractive than claiming benefits. Whether that will work or not, time will tell.
Thank you. Councillor Brian Stevenson.
I'm obliged to you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Duffy has actually took the wind out of my sails a little bit, because she said quite a lot of what I was going to say, but I would just like to, well, I'll put it like this. Reference universal credit, and that's on 3.2, Councillor Vincent. In reply to my question, if you remember, on the same subject at the last meeting, you gave me a shameful answer. It was, in my opinion, a dereliction of your duty. You said, because you didn't have an answer, you said to me, ask the minister. Ask the minister. Well, I did actually. I asked 3 of them. A priest, a Church of England minister, and a Methodist. And they was all appalled at it, at this inhumane, cruel policy. So the question is, it's same as what Councillor Duffy's just said, Madam Mayor. The deadline is fast approaching. In other areas, people are suffering, some dying as a consequence. What are you doing to prevent the poor people of Fleetwood and Wyre, and there are a lot of poor people about, of suffering the same fate? Thank you.
Everything within our power that we can do.
Councillor Fail.
So I'll give way to Councillor Lorraine Beavers first, if you don't mind. I'll go afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, Councillor Vincent, it's on the same subject. This council should be aware that there was a recent House of Commons vote that decided to pause the rollout of this government's vile implementation of universal credit. Most of the Conservative MPs stayed away from the House, showing, in my opinion, how much contempt they held for the victims of this unjust system that is being imposed upon the poorest and most vulnerable members of our society. Those Conservatives who remained in the House abstained. I think that's absolutely disgraceful. 299 Labour MPs and others voted to pause and fix universal credit. But, surprise, surprise, the government led by Theresa now insists that that vote isn't binding. What does that mean, isn't binding? I find that statement unbelievable and a mockery of our democratic system. We all know in this room the hardship and suffering universal credit has already inflicted on the people in this country who are already in receipt of this unjust and vile benefit. Continuing to roll out universal credit will mean misery for thousands of people within Wyre. I believe this is an act of conscious cruelty. We as a council need to stand together for the good of all of our residents. Therefore, please can I ask if Councillor Vincent could write to the Secretary of State for Works and Pensions, Esther McVeigh, on behalf of this council, asking her to abandon the plans to roll out this vile, consciously cruel attack on our poor and disabled residents who live in Wyre and are due to be the next victims of universal credit this December. Thank you.
The answer is no.
Councillor Fail.
I did have a lot more to say on the universal credit, but quite a lot been said already, so I won't. I'll ask a specific question, which I think does need answering. So, with regard to the Fylde Coast landlords referred to in para 3.2 of your report, can I ask if a guarantee has been put in place so that no evictions will be made as a result of the disaster that is universal credit? If a guarantee of no evictions is not in place, what action is Wyre taking to safeguard its residents? Thank you.
I can't tell you whether that's one of the actions that is in place. Obviously, we've been aware that this is coming for quite some time, so I know that the officers have been working on the best solution that they can obtain, but I'll have to give you a written response to whether that specifically is one of them. We do obviously have an obligation in any event to prevent homelessness, so we have to communicate with people who are threatened with homelessness, so that policy would kick in, I would suspect, in relation to what you're asking. So the thing will overlap, but whether it's been specifically addressed in terms of UC as opposed to in the general overall view, I don't know. So I'd have to give you a written response to that.
I'm afraid that our time is up on that, so I'm sorry, Councillor Turner, we haven't got time for your question. Sorry about that. That concludes the consideration of the Resources Portfolio Holder Report. We will now move on to the report of the Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces Portfolio Holder. Councillor Bridge, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The report's in front of you. I'm happy to take questions.
Are there any questions or comments for the portfolio holder? Councillor Kay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's with great pleasure to say, after 2 days of reporting bins going through the trash can, should we say, that the residents have phoned me today to say they are very happy with the service from where the bins have been replaced. So I'd like to thank you on that note, and you thank the staff as well, please.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, I think we've had in a very successful partnership with Veolia. There are very few people who are unhappy with whatever service they offer. They offer a very high standard of service, including replacement bins, picking up rubbish on time, making sure that the correct things are in the correct bins. So thanks for that.
Councillor Orme.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bridges, can I use this opportunity to inform the Council that Priestle and Knott End won the large village class of the Lancashire Best Kept Village competition? And would you, on my behalf and the community's behalf, thank the street cleaning team, the Parks and Open Spaces team, for their input in helping the community win this accolade?
Well, congratulations. Thank you for telling me that. Obviously, we have a fantastic team. Our officers and staff work so hard, but we're also blessed with so many friends groups and in bloom groups throughout the borough. Fleetwood, over Wyre, Poulton, Garstang. We are blessed with people who take responsibility for their community, a pride in their community, and long may it continue.
Councillor Duffy.
Sorry, I have nothing to say to that. Talk to the Chief Executive.
It's not an insult. I was quoting him.
I didn't say insult. I said
Oh, right. Sorry. I haven't got my hearing aid in and I'm not joking.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. Oh, sorry.
I think you said Lees. Could you, Councillor Bridge, confirm that you actually received my comments on the bins several meetings ago? I did send you a response which you asked for. Could you confirm that you received it? You don't. It looks as though you didn't.
No, I have to say, if it was a few meetings ago, what was it about, Terry?
It was about the bins and actually aligning the bins properly, not just slinging them back in.
Yeah, I caught you in the corridor at the meeting.
Yes,
before last.
I did send you a.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I can explain what we've done.
Thank you.
We've got a. There was a problem with the bins and rubbish falling down the backs of the bins, wasn't there? And so they were smelling, etc. The next day, after I received that, we went in and we set up a new protocol whereby when they take the liner of the bin out, they have a dustpan and brush, clean it all out, so it's all sorted. I did have a word with you verbally. Sorry if you'd wanted an email. I would have emailed you back as well, but I did have a quick. Yeah, I'm sorry. Instead, I caught you here in the corridor and said we've got. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Evelyn Stevenson.
I'd just like to ask, have Councillor Bridges got a contingency plan for when the Memorial Park becomes a tent town, or the marine hall becomes a place for the homelessness after this universal credit comes in? Also, on the toilet facilities, they won't even have 20p to pay to go to the toilets on Lord Street. So have you got plans in place should there be this catastrophe?
It's not in my portfolio.
Well, I don't know. You're sweeping streets clean, so surely there'd be a lot more rubbish with the memorial, the park being full of tents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ellison.
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just about the new Cleaner Greener project officer.
Myself and Councillor Ballard recently met up with her, and we've organised our first community clean-up in our ward. And some of the ideas she had and future projects we've got planned, I think she's definitely going to be an asset to the council and certainly to our area. So thank you.
Well, thank you for that. The feedback I'm getting from so many people is she's quite dynamic, very proactive, heavily involved in the community, has great communication skills, but also she already has a lot of connections within the community. She's working with all of our partners from Regenda through to In Bloom and parish councils, and I would have to say she's living up to the high expectation we have of our officers, which is very high indeed.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the report of Street Scene, Parks and Open Spaces portfolio holder. We will now move on to the report of the Planning and Economic Development portfolio holder. Councillor Michael Vincent, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My report is before members. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Ibbison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wish to take the opportunity to inform the members here this evening that 3 members of the Scrutiny Committee are trialling tablets with the ModGov system on it, which will enable us to use paperless technology in the future. Just for interest, the 3 councillors are myself, Councillor Fail and Councillor Rita Amos.
Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Read the local plan. Can Councillor Vincent inform the council how much it has cost to prepare and submit the plan, and also what is the cost of the inspector, because normally that's horrendous. And secondly, I understand the government has moved the goalposts yet again, and our OAN, objectively assessed need, has reduced development requirements, and our new OAN means we have 11 years supply of land. How will this affect our pre-application discussions with developers? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson. In terms of costs, I can't answer that off the top of my head. I'll get you a written response, no problem. With regards to the assessment of the land, when dealing with developments, obviously the local plan as it stands now has a certain number in it. Obviously we'll look to what the numbers are when we amend the plan, but the number that is in the plan is gospel. They are the sites. That's our numbers for now. The goalpost for assessing it may have changed, but the local plan is as it is, and we will work around those numbers going forward.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, I didn't ask what the situation was now. I said, what will it be in the future in our pre-application discussions with developers?
As I alluded to, Councillor Gibson, there's an early review of the local plan where that number will be assessed. As things stand, as per my answer to you, nothing has changed as far as we're concerned. That's the local plan, that's what we stick to. That's the answer that will remain the answer.
Councillor Hodgkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Vincent, I have a comment and a question regarding the Cleaners Market. I was pleased to see that you've moved it temporarily onto the car park of Derby Road. It gives much more protection to the stallholders and the shoppers going round. It appears to be going quite well. I was there again yesterday, and there's plenty of people milling around. Hopefully they're buying, and they're encouraging the stallholders to come back. Although I'm a bit concerned, I still think the best position for it is on Victoria Road West, which I hope is still looking into. But at the end of the trial period, if it is decided to continue the market on a permanent basis, and it's still on the car park or the plaza, could I ask you to put up signs on Victoria Road at least, showing people, telling people rather, where the market is? Because people coming up from Blackpool on the bus and the tram they walk up Victoria Road, but obviously they can't see the market on the car park. So I think it really needs well signposted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgkinson. With regards to the buses, there is quite a large advert for the market immediately opposite the bus station. If they're missing it, there's not much more we can do about that. But I take your point with regards to signage on Victoria Road for people that are getting off the trams or perhaps the buses at other stops. Coming back to the point, we've addressed this numerous times with various people to where the market is held. It will not be held on Victoria Road West because it's just a logistical nightmare. The land is owned up to the middle of the road by the owners of the buildings. We would need the consent of all the different shop owners all the way up Victoria Road. If one of them gives it and it just becomes a nightmare. And actually, as you say, where it is now, it's nicely sheltered. It's a car park that on a Wednesday isn't particularly busy, so we can easily move the cars but parking on there onto our other car parks. It's nicely sheltered by the Royal British Legion, and as you say yourself, it seems a lot more popular since it has moved. It's a lot more of a suitable location for it at this time of year. During the summer months, perhaps moving it back to the promenade and then having that as a fallback position is something we would look at and we would consult once the trial period has ended. But I think where it is now is the best place for it, but I will take on board what you say about advertising it better.
Councillor Emma Anderton. Councillor Emma Anderton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Vincent, I'm referring to page 18, paragraph 5.1, Coastal Community Fund. You may be aware that Fleetwood Town Council, working in partnership with Fleetwood Rotary Club, are promoting a scheme called Beach Wheelchairs. On September the 16th, there was a demonstration of some borrowed beach wheelchairs on the Marine Beach in Fleetwood, where people with mobility issues could try one of these beach wheelchairs and access the beach, some for the first time in their lives, which was a hugely positive experience for them. Could I ask you to promote this scheme on behalf of Fleetwood and Wyre and do what you can to try and ensure that some of the CCF funding is used to purchase beach wheelchairs, enabling our beautiful beaches to become accessible to all? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I can't comment on whether we could use any of this specific funding for it, but it sounds like a great initiative, and one I would completely support, and we'll definitely, if you want to send me an email with some details, we'll definitely have to work with the officers and see what we can do.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could Councillor Vincent give assurances that any developments that transpire on the Hill House estate will not impact upon the old rail line, and can he give assurances that that will stay open for as long as possible? Maybe we could reopen the line, so that assurances should be given that we will maintain the link between Thornton and Fleetwood and Poulton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lees. It remains this council's view that it would be a good thing for the line to reopen, but in the absence of support from Network Rail and funding from Network Rail, I can't give any assurance that if a genuine opportunity for progress in the borough were to arise, that we could give any guarantee that it wouldn't affect the line. But if there was a way we can do it that wouldn't affect the line, then so be it.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Hodgkinson has sort of said what I wanted to say, which is about the market, and it seems to be proving really popular, especially in the new location on Derby Road. It would be nice on Victoria Road, but of course I know about the difficulties, but I do think the Derby Road is a much better location for it than on the prom. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the consideration of the Planning and Economic Development Portfolio Holders Report. We will now move on to the report of the Neighbourhood Services and Community Safety Portfolio Holder. Councillor Berry, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just want to mention that in paragraph 4 of my report, I mentioned about the Lampack Rural Crime Conference to be held in Lancaster. The times and dates of this conference have been altered. It will now be held on the 7th of November. It will be an all-day conference starting just after 9 o'clock and continuing until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If any member wishes to attend this conference, could they please contact me so that I can book them in with LAMPAC. Other than that, Madam Mayor, my report is before members and I'll do my best to reply to any inquiries.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am asking for reassurances, assuming that the portfolio holder is aware of recent potentially serious events on Russell Promenade, in which a wheelchair-bound member of the public accidentally fell off his wheelchair and injured himself. Local residents were on hand to assist. However, it was felt that an ambulance was needed to be called. A member of the public rang for an ambulance on their mobile, and then, to assist their speedy access, went to the nearest point where the vehicles can gain access to the promenade. Unfortunately, on arrival, he found that there was a heavy-duty chain padlocked to the entrance point. When the ambulance arrived, the dilemma was pointed out to them. Not to be deterred, the ambulance team said that there's another entrance further up, and they drove up the road to the next access point, which they again found had a heavy-duty chain and was padlocked like the first one. They drove back to the first point and proceeded to move at speed with their equipment to the scene on foot. If the portfolio is aware of this, could he tell me what steps in future could be taken for emergency vehicles to access the promenade? If this is not the case, I would suggest that there has to be means of gaining access for such vehicles to the promenade for exactly the reasons I've just pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you for that. In all honesty, I wasn't aware of that incident, and I think it's something that I will obviously have to take up with the engineering team. There are access points there for emergency vehicles, and I'm a bit at a loss to find out that they were locked. So I think I'll have to make further inquiries about the circumstances, whether it was an occasion when there was high tides or something like that. I don't know, I'm speculating, but I'll have to come back to you on that one. But those points, there are emergency points, so I can't really answer why they weren't available for ambulance crew to access the promenade.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Berry, it's been highlighted once again today that violent crime is soaring, but the number of cases solved is actually falling. Knife offences is the highest on record at the moment. It's an increase on 12% since June 2000, up to June 2018. Do you agree with one police leader who says the public are being failed and that government cuts have created a crisis? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
In all honesty, I don't think knife crime is an issue in Wyre, to be quite honest. It's not been highlighted as a major problem.
Answer my question.
No, I'm answering your question about knife crime in Wyre. I've pointed out at the last meeting what I felt about cuts, and in fact, there was a paper in the local government papers that we receive every day saying that central government has actually maintained its overall budget for policing in real terms since 2015 and 16, but an increase in proportion has been allocated to fund national priorities and counter-terrorism, leaving less for local policing. So government is putting money in, but as a society, we're finding other issues that are arising. No, I'm answering your question. You're interrupting me. I'm sorry. I am answering your question. I'm answering the question. There's no, the cuts are in your imagination. Money is going in, but there are priorities. There are other priorities. There are other priorities, including national security and terrorism.
Members. Let me just remind you what's in the Constitution when it comes to executive reports. When it comes to executive reports, portfolio holder presents it, and then members, and we write a list, can ask a question, and they get an answer. It's not a debate, but members must... sorry, Councillor Duffy. No, it's not a debate. It's a question and an answer. It's not a debate. It's not... Oh, well, can I suggest that you read the Can I suggest that you read the Constitution clearly? Questions are asked and answers are... Questions are asked and responses are given. Now, we've had questions and reference tonight about national policy. Very cleverly, that question was turned to, and what is Wyre going to do about it? That's completely appropriate. You asked a question, made a statement. The portfolio holder, Councillor Berry, gave you a response linked to Wyre, which is the correct response to give. But it's not a debate. If you don't like the response, well, I'm sorry, the Constitution doesn't allow for debate. Debate is when we move to other matters, not executive reports. It's very clear in the Constitution. And I would ask members just to be respectful of each other. So if a question is asked, an answer is given, and then we can move on to the next member, and then that way we don't run out of time. And for my explanation, we will reset the clock and we will take that time off for the explanation that I've just given you. But please be mindful of what's in the Constitution. Thank you.
Councillor Kay.
Mine's on a nicer note. Councillor Berry, I spoke to you 2 days ago about antisocial behaviour in the Thornton and Clevelands area and a young family that's been targeted. I would just like to say thank you on behalf of the resident, to you and the Officer Radford Amos for giving them a bit of peace of mind that now things are progressing to ensure that they are safe in the home. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I mean, the community safety team meets at least every 14 days with the police to discuss antisocial behaviour incidents that are arising and haven't been solved by the local police, so that we can sort out the problems and get down to the root causes of issues. And I'm very pleased that this has proved successful and the process is underway. There is also another thing that I think we should mention, that there is a thing called victim support, which has been supported by the Police and Crime Commissioner, and that is a very valuable tool for people that have been affected, especially by a long-term antisocial behaviour, to seek professional advice, and that is another way of sorting out issues. So we do locally what we can do, and there is also a more Lancashire-wide process that's available to everybody. So yes, we're looking to victims very much so that we can sort out their issues and problems.
Councillor Gibson.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to compliment the care and repair service. When in hospital, the OTs there recommended LCC for a shower grab rail. I was told it would take 4 months, so I rang up our care and repair on a Thursday. They installed the rail on the following Monday, and all for £10. Great service, great value for money as well. If you could pass that on, I'd be grateful, Councillor Berry.
I will do. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. I can recommend the care and repair team. I think they do a fantastic job. They've done a fantastic job over many years, and in fact, they have a good budget to work from because of the efficiency and the speed in which they've carried out their work. And I'm sure they were doing their best to look after all our residents in Wyre.
Thank you. Councillor Wormsley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I just thank you, Councillor Berry, for your work with the Flood Forum and the Wyre officers, Carl Green and his staff, for getting all the agencies together for these meetings. The meetings are important for local residents affected by flooding and the local flood groups that help in the area. But my question is, would it be possible for ward councillors and groups who find it difficult to attend on occasions to send their questions in writing to the Flood Forum so their important issues can be heard and discussed, please?
Yes, by all means they can do, and I think it was the last council meeting before the last flood forum, I did actually say that the flood forum was going to occur in a few weeks' time, and if there are any questions that wanted to be put to that forum, that those who couldn't attend, please send them on either to myself or Cal Green, and we'll put them before the members and the agencies that attend our forum.
That's fine, thank you.
And can I thank everybody who attended the recent winter preparedness event which was held. We got a good attendance by a lot of agencies, and I'd like to thank you and Councillor Phil Orme for standing in for me at that event, because I was away on holiday, and it's something that I hope that we can hold in future again and again to help our residents make some wise decisions about what they can do to prepare themselves for winter and prepare themselves for possible flooding events.
Thank you.
Councillor Sean Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, it's care and repair again. Just to say, I attended the Fleetwood event at the fire station, doing a brilliant job, as has been mentioned. It's great to see them working with other agencies. Adult learning were there, and at the GP surgery. So there's some really good community work going on, and that resilience is really important going forward, keeping people safe and well. The other thing I'd just quickly like to mention is the land pack meeting you talked about. On the way in actually today, I noticed one of the things is they're going to discuss is theft and poaching and shooting. Sadly, one of the, which is the symbol for the Troffer Bowl, and one of the chicks that fledged the Harrier hens has gone missing. It's been announced today, so hopefully it isn't poaching, but it's a shame anyway, and it just bring it to people's attention that, you know, it's on the agenda there, so it might be, if you can get there, just then do so. Okay.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
Councillor Moon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's just 4.1. I take it you're going to go to this meeting, are you, Roger? Unfortunately, the change of the date clashes with the planning committee, and I'm sure my colleague was wanting to attend that, so our apologies for that. But the rural crime is quite an issue, especially over Wyre. We've had several occasions where farm equipment has been stolen, agricultural equipment that have used to ram raid. Just recently at Hambleton, where they've been attacking the cash machines, and it's causes great distress to many people just to witness it and be involved with it, what have you. So if you can take that forwards, and if you can report on that specific point back, that would be really good. And I just have to say that I think, Roger, you know, you are a true gentleman how you answer the questions, and I think it's quite deplorable that the opposition was trying to shout you down like they were. I think that was quite bad, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Can I just thank you for your comments? We're acutely aware of the issues of rural crime. It tends to be overlooked to some extent, but we've been keeping tabs on it, obviously. But one of the things as a community safety partnership, we are looking to fund a scheme where we can do some marking of farm equipment and encourage farmers themselves to consider this. That there is a lot of rural crime taking place, and it's high value rural crime in a lot of cases, very high value. A tractor could be worth 80,000 at least, and this is sadly very prevalent. So yes, we will do what we can to encourage schemes for people to look after themselves by marking their equipment and cooperating in communicating if any people are around who are carrying out offences, because we tend to find that these people do travel around areas, and it's useful to have some form of communication via emails to alert people to what is happening.
Thank you, Councillor. That actually exceeds our 10 minutes, so unfortunately, Councillor Schuon, we've run out of time on this topic. The next report is from the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio holder. Councillor Bowen, would you please introduce your report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've just got one thing to add, and that's to congratulate the 8 Wyre Borough Sports Award winners. They'll be going forward to represent Wyre Council at the Lancashire Sports Awards in November, and I'm sure we all hope that they do well and wish them all good luck. Thank you.
Councillor Ballard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a reference of the community. I'd like to put an advertisement out on the engagement. On the 24th of next week, on Wednesday, we're doing a community litter pick with a partnership of Wyre Borough and for Fleetwood Community Trust, also the co-op, and that will be 1 till 4. And if anybody does attend, any children must be accompanied by an adult. We will get the discount vouchers and milkshakes for those that are taking part and everything. But also after that, at 5 o'clock, there's going to be an outdoor viewing of a family film, which is free to anyone to come along with their families and enjoy the entertainment. Thank you. Sorry, it's at the Poolfoot Farm, the Fleetwood Training Centre, training grounds. Sorry.
Thanks for that.
Councillor Ellison.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's regarding the final homecoming. I know there's been plans going on for it for over a year, and I'd been really looking forward to going to it. And I see that it's been put on a Monday, and I was just curious as to why, you know, a parade or sort of a big community event like that has been put on a weekday when everyone's at work and school. That was my question, really.
I think
it is,
half
isn't
term,
it? It's half
yeah.
term. Sorry, and I've got 4 kids as well.
Yeah, and
sorry, but I'll be at work.
there is an awful lot going on, and I hope that it's well, you know, lots of people go there, and because it's very worthwhile.
Councillor Atkins.
Madam Mayor, I've been reading in the press about monkeypox, and I was just wondering, you know, is Wyre safe from this disease? Thank you.
I'd just like to thank our partners with that really, and it's the Health England, Public Health England and the CCG who have worked really hard to try and contain this disease. We are just, our job at Wyre Borough is to try and enforce any decontamination. That's the, you know, but it is actually a National Health Service thing. Fortunately, through their swift action, it appears that it has been contained, and we just hope that there's no more outbreaks.
Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bowen, 3.1 of your report, I am pleased to see that this council is looking at working in partnership in dealing with self-neglect within our communities. The Care Act of 2014 sets out a clear legal framework for how local authorities should protect adults at risk of abuse or neglect. It incorporates safeguarding adults within the Act, and obviously I understand LCC are the funding authority for social care. However, herein why we still have a duty of care to safeguard all vulnerable adults and children as defined within the safeguarding remit. Therefore, can you tell me, Councillor Bowen, has there been an increase in people struggling to support themselves in the borough, hence the report, as I don't recollect any previous reports being brought to the council? And are you prepared for further increases in self-neglect once the full horror of universal credit is inflicted on the many more vulnerable members of our community, as one of the biggest causes of self-neglect stems from poverty? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
We are, as a borough, working very closely with the social services and mental health and the emergency services regarding any vulnerable adults. It's, I don't know if it's increased or decreased because it's not actually a council. Wyre Borough Council isn't actually a health authority. Yes, yeah.
Councillor Emma Anderton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bowen, my question is also in relation to page 27, para 7.1, the final homecoming. I'm actually quite disappointed to read this update and discover that no credit is being given to Fleetwood Town Council, who've been playing a pivotal role in the organisation of the final homecoming parade. Fleetwood Town Council has given substantial financial provision to the event to the tune of £6,000 and has also supported with considerable officer time, contributing to the organisation and promotion. I do think it's quite remiss of you not to acknowledge this significant effort, and perhaps Fleetwood Town Council deserves an apology for this omission.
I think there's various agencies that have contributed towards this. I've got 2 pages here of what exactly is going to go on that day. So really, it's all the agencies that have come together to allow this to happen. But like I said before, it's a very worthwhile day, and I hope it's going to be well supported. And it's been really well advertised in the press, and I expect after the day, people will be thanked.
Councillor Ann Turner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And with reference to 4.1, I'm pleased to see that with the introduction of the legislation around the Animal Welfare Act, there should be a standard of improvement in the care of animals in these establishments. Perhaps, Councillor Berry, I hope you'd be able to reassure us all that any breaches in these licences will be dealt with in the same robust way as breaches for taxi licences or restaurant licences.
Yeah.
Sorry. Lynn, sorry.
Yeah, this is a new thing to give them the various stars what they after they've been examined and have gone through all the various questions and whatnot, and they've been inspected. So it's hoping that it will raise the standards of a lot of places of animals.
Can I just have a follow-up? The question was, will any breaches be dealt with in the same robust way that breaches of other licensing?
Yeah, I don't see why they shouldn't be, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Collinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is food safety 2.2. In the fast food industry and restaurants included in this question, when they're checked for hygiene and given the food ratings, is there something that can be done then to check cross-contamination of ingredients? As a grandmother of a child with food allergies and food intolerance, he can become seriously ill by a smallest amount of contamination. And I found on the TV yesterday, I don't know whether anybody saw it, but the ratings for these restaurants when they're checked, if they're checked, say, a 1 or a 2 stars, they give them stars, that is what they're supposed to post. But this survey had gone round, and there was one restaurant had got no stars and was posting 4-star. How can this be checked? Thank you.
Because of the very sad death of the teenager in Lancashire, we are going round to all these food outlets now, and what we're doing is we're trying to train them so that there's 14 food allergens altogether, and we're giving them lots and lots of information on cross-contamination. That we're making them put these food allergens in the menus and on the walls of the businesses. Everything we can do to try and make the public aware of what those products, what products actually have those allergens in. There's lots and lots of advice on the website as well, and we're just hoping that will suffice. But we would like to see food allergen-free outlets, but whether it will ever happen, I don't know, because that's up to the business owners, and I suppose it's because it will be very expensive to make their businesses like that. But as for people putting stars on the windows and whatnot where they haven't actually earned them, I would say that was pretty serious actually, and we do hope the public will report them for that. Thank you.
Unfortunately, councillors, we have exceeded our 10 minutes, so apologies to Councillor Anderton and Councillor Gibson. That concludes the consideration of the Leisure, Health and Community Engagement Portfolio Holders Report, which is the last of the executive reports this evening. Now is the opportunity for members of the Cabinet to make comments or ask questions on the reports of their colleagues. Do any Cabinet members wish to do so? That concludes the consideration of executive reports. The next item is a periodic report from the Chairman of the Licensing Committee, which is on page 29 of the agenda. Councillor Robinson, would you please introduce the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, the periodic report of the Licensing Committee is before members, and happy to take any questions.
Councillor Lees.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've already touched on this with the chairman of the committee. For the first time in years, I think, an in-depth report has been presented to the council, and it concerns me that we get these papers at committee, and usually they're on green paper, and although the people are not mentioned in this document by name, it's not too difficult for anyone to work out in certain areas who has been discussed here. And my concern, as I said to the chairman, was that a report like this was never presented to the council. It's accepted that the confidentiality and the propriety of the committee is never challenged, and I question the need to go into such depths in making this report. Thank you.
Councillor Brian Stevenson.
I've lost you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick one. This is a little bit different. I didn't know Councillor Robinson was a man. I thought she was a woman. I'm sure she is. Chairman of the Licensing Committee. No. Very, very sexist, Madam Mayor. It should be, obviously, chairperson. Can we not make sure that that's put in future? That's in keeping with legislation, anti-sex legislation, all of that stuff. It's there, brought on by Tory governments as well. So, like John Major was the first one. Julie, you're not a man, you're a woman, and it should say chairperson. Just a little point. Thank you very much.
Are there any other comments or questions for Councillor Shu?
Yeah, I was going through this. What surprised me was that as I went through it, most of the appeals appear to go on this report to Manchester Magistrates Court, rather than which I thought, why are they not going to Blackpool Court? But I mean, the reclaimed costs of one driver of nearly £6,000. I mean, if that reflects the cost to the council in every case, then it's going to cost a fortune going that far every time. So why can't we ensure that most of them are heard at Blackburn rather than at Manchester? It seems a rather expensive method of settling disputes.
No. Thank you, Councillor Sherwin. Are there any other questions? Oh.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does Councillor Robinson share my view that it's somewhat strange that an application for a 24-hour alcohol licence at a petrol station in Fleetwood has been granted because nobody in Fleetwood objected to it, when I would have thought that that would be something that should at least be brought to committee had anybody taken the time to call it in?
Are there any other comments or questions for Councillor Robinson? Would you please...
Okay, very much for them. Comments? Obviously, Councillor Lees, obviously I'll take on your comments on board and obviously maybe scale down the report next time. It was all the information that's out there. Councillor Stevenson, I know I've got trousers on and a jacket. I will put a dress on next time. And obviously, regarding the magistrates, I came in as chairman of this halfway through, and the chairman before was obviously a JP, and obviously he couldn't go to the magistrates round here. That's why they was held in Manchester. Okay, is that answers everybody's questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. The next item is a report about the dispensation for non-attendance at councillor meetings for Councillor Balmain. Councillor Henderson, would you please introduce the report and propose the recommendation?
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to add a couple of things to this report. As the caring person that I am, I went along to see Councillor Balmain. And it was heartening, actually, in the fact that he was being visited at the time by constituents who wanted to discuss items. Tom is the circle. He takes everybody's comments on and then passes them on to his fellow councillors for them to deal with. That's how he is addressing his job as a councillor. Unfortunately, Councillor Balmain is to go into hospital again for further treatment, and I'm sure that we all wish him well. So therefore, Madam Mayor, I should like to propose the recommendation at 3.1 that Councillor Balmain be granted a dispensation to continue to act as a councillor without attending meetings until the 1st of May 2019. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the proposal? Would members please vote now on the recommendation? Those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. The dispensation is approved. The next item is notices of motion. However, there are none, so that concludes the business for this evening and the meeting is closed. Thank you all for attending.